Podcast tip for anyone who wants to do a podcast, but they don't feel that they have the equipment. I am sitting in my closet, legs folded, with my $9 microphone perched on a green pillow. And the closet is a great space to do a podcast because your clothes will absorb the sounds. Now, today, especially, there's no excuse for you to not create a dialogue if you want to. You don't need expensive equipment. You don't need to wait for, to build the podcast room or have the right editing equipment. You could do shit on your phone. I'm on episode north of 200 and something. I started about a year ago making a promise to myself to just do 12. And now 2 million downloads later, I am still creating a dialogue with my $9 microphone and a passion to help people. And that's it. I don't care where I am. I'm going to do it. I don't care what tools I have. I'm going to do it. And my hope is that you do the same if you have a fire in your belly to create some kind of dialogue about whatever you're passionate about. Anyway, this episode is about eating marshmallows. And before I get to that and what that's about, I want to ask you a question. Do you have a partner who loves to recycle? I do, and I think that's great. She cares about the environment, and that's a priority. She's been recycling since she was like 11, which is adorable. But I came home the other day, and I was flossing, and I was going to throw my floss in the wastebasket, and I noticed that the wastebasket was, when you go to the dentist and you get the little bag full of goodies, the free toothbrush, the free travel size floss and toothpaste, that little bag that's slightly bigger than a condom if you blew up a condom, right? She lined the wastebasket with the little dentist bag because she didn't want to throw that bag away. And here's what's funny. It's not, so I get it. Okay, if you want to use that bag for a trash bag, great. But then just put it on the side and put, only like maybe a couple pieces of toilet paper are going to fit in there, but fine. But she actually took the bag and tried to line it. It's not big enough to line the wastebasket, but she kind of folded it and positioned it in the wastebasket, and it's kind of like sitting there. And it was like me at the fair trying to throw shit into this little hole. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Anyway, not sure if anyone can relate to that. Let's talk about eating marshmallows. Speaking of my partner, there was a test for kids. They did on kids a long time ago where they put marshmallows in front of them. And there were the two types of kids. The kids that ate the marshmallow first, or if you held off, you would get two, right? And so my partner would be someone who would obviously hold off for the bigger payoff at the end, right? She has a lot more discipline than me. I would not only eat my marshmallow, but I would go and steal the marshmallows from the other kids and eat those marshmallows. Now, I'm not saying that, and I think that this is a type of wiring. I think it's a type of way that we think, right? If you are the type that eats marshmallows, the first marshmallow, instead of waiting for the ladder to get a second marshmallow, you're someone who's going to be more, I think, I don't want to say reckless, but you're going to do things. You're going to, without, putting a lot of thought. If you're the kind of kid that would hold off on the marshmallow, hold off on the instant gratification and wait till you get a bigger payoff, then you're probably someone who grows up to do a lot of planning, right? Maybe you're more of a perfectionist. Maybe you need to outline things before jumping in. I'm the kid that jumps in without thinking, right? I'm the kid that builds the bus while driving it, that tries to figure out how I'm going to land after I take the leap. And so I've always thought that was not a good thing. I've always thought that was me being reckless, and it's something that I didn't like about myself. But as I grew up, especially in business, I learned that there's a gift in that. And so I wanted to use that marshmallow example as a mindset, because and I'm not saying to be impulsive. I'm not saying to be me, but I think that if you save your marshmallow and you're always waiting for the payoff, then you can get into a habit of not pulling the trigger. And I think a lot of people want to build things. A lot of people want to do things. You know, we all have dreams. A lot of people are stuck in jobs they don't like. And they're basically holding off on eating the marshmallow because they think that if they wait, they will get a bigger payoff, right? I was listening to an interview with Tim Ferriss and Ryan Holiday, and they were talking about investments because I think Tim Ferriss is really great at it, and he's in that whole investing world. And he was saying, but you know, there's a point where you're doing so much work for this payoff later, and you forget to like live life, right? You forget to what I call seek nectar. And one of the reasons why I choose to eat the marshmallow is because life is short, and because I think it trains you to actually start pulling the trigger on things, right? I think a lot of times if we get into the pattern of investing and sacrificing now for things later, then we don't pull the trigger on things. If I look back at my life, most of the things that I've built, whether it is this podcast or a life coaching academy online, journey coaching, or my public practice. I call it public because I've never had an office and don't want to. All of that started from me pushing down the first domino and just doing it and figuring out how, right, as I go. A good example of this is most recently I thought about, I've always wanted to do an urban retreat, a retreat that takes place in the city. And I thought, you know, what if there are people who don't have time to go to the exotic location and take time off of work? What if the retreat came into their city where you meet a couple times a week for maybe a month, you know, and maybe you got all the things that you would get in a retreat, doing it with a tribe and all the elements and rotating different experts, and also some activities like hiking and using the city as a blank canvas. I thought that would be interesting. So I've always had this idea, but I never pulled the trigger. And then recently I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And so, you know, put up the on social, the post, and partnered with Adventure Fit, who's going to take care of the meal programming and the body and the physical. And I'm going to go into it holistically, meaning mind, body, soul. And I've got a friend doing meditation. I've got a friend talking about trauma and how that affects our lives. I got my partner is going to talk about mindfulness because she's a mindfulness coach. And now it's all coming together. And listen, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? I don't know. I don't care. But the value is me pushing down that first domino, me eating the marshmallow, me actually doing something about executing my dream, you know, swinging that bat. And in that process, right, if I just do it, whether it quote unquote fails or succeeds is not the point. The point is getting into a habit of actually executing. And I think many people are stuck in things, whether it's jobs, relationships, things that aren't honest to them, right, are stuck in things that make them unhappy. And they're not pulling the trigger because they're so used to holding off on eating the marshmallows, hoping they'll get more marshmallows later. And then that later never comes, right? So I don't know if you need to have a tough conversation with your partner because you're unhappy. I don't know if you need to pull the trigger and start, you know, doing shit on social media. I don't know if you need to go into the closet like I'm sitting now and plug a microphone into your computer and start talking because you have a fire in your belly and to create a dialogue and you want to do a podcast. Or maybe you want to paint, maybe you want to play the guitar, maybe you want to, I don't know. But what's important is not the quality of what you're doing, because everything you do is going to require a progression, right? It's going to require a journey. What's important is that you start. And so I'm encouraging you, and maybe this episode can be a reminder, whether you are watching me on video or listening to me in your car as you're headed to work and dreading it. What does it look like for you to eat the marshmallow? What does it look like for you to set something in motion? Because if you don't execute that, right, you're only going to live with a lot of ideas and a lot of frustration and a lot of observing other people doing their shit and wishing that that could be you. The truth is it could be you. You just have to push the first domino. So what does that look like for you? And I don't know if you're thinking about better relationships, better friendships. I don't know if you're thinking about better work that you're really passionate about, that you want to do, or maybe it means going back to school. I don't know. Or maybe it involves some kind of body transformation. But if you're just thinking, if you're just digesting information and audiobooks and all of that, and maybe going to seminars and stuff, but you're not doing the work, if you're not actually pedaling the bike, your life is not going to change. So I encourage you today to think about your life, think about the things that you really want to pull the trigger on, but you're not. And I want you to place value on the execution of starting, not the execution of the whole thing, right? The execution of starting a project. I am going to sell soap. I thought of an idea when I found out that my assistant's mom makes soap. I was like, oh, that's amazing. And I teach a lot of stuff about the solid versus pseudo self, and I relate that to Fight Club. Fight Club is one of my favorite movies. And so I thought, what if I made a soap that says miserable fuck, and that's pink, a la Fight Club, and I could ship it out in little brown bags with my messages and all that. Now, here's the thing. When I had that idea, the value in it wasn't to like suddenly start making soap or start a soap company, right? I'm a therapist, right? And you might think, well, you're a therapist, why the fuck are you making soap? The value in it for me, and it's on the way, is to push the first domino, is to start something, is to have an idea, of the soap, and then one day hold it in my hand. To me, that's the value. If anything happens, from that, great. But that, that to me, that is what the value is. And that's where I place the value. And if that's the case, then I've already won for me, because in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be able to wash my body with this miserable fuck soap that I had imagined in my head, right? And so that is tremendous, because that changes your thinking. It changes what you believe you can do. And as you start to do more of this, you start to believe you can then execute. And then once you start to execute and that becomes a pattern, now, as you're coming up with ideas, as you want to change your life, you're finally doing things about it instead of just thinking about it and wishing about it and watching other people do it.